When I lost my job, my husband's family held a tough love intervention. They told me I was a burden. "You're draining him," his mother said. "Maybe this is a sign you weren't meant for more." My husband said, "They're just trying to help." I nodded, took notes, and used every word in my exit interview. 2 months later, I got a job out of state. I left a goodbye note and a one-way ticket with his name on it. He never used it. 6 months ago, I got laid off. I worked as a marketing manager at a company in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. It wasn't flashy, but it was steady. I handled campaigns, coordinated with clients, kept the wheels turning. I'd been there 5 years. Then one Friday morning, my boss called me in. I already knew what it was. People had been whispering for weeks. Layoffs were coming. I just didn't think I'd be one of them. He said things like budget cuts, nothing personal, and "you've been great." I nodded, shook his hand, and packed up my desk in silence. On the drive home, I didn't cry. I didn't panic. I just felt tired. When I told my husband Mike, he didn't say much. He sat at the kitchen table and rubbed his temples. "We'll figure it out," he said. "It's just a rough patch." I believed him. The first week, I applied to over a dozen jobs. I tightened our spending. I offered to cancel subscriptions, cook at home more, cut back on the things we liked. He said it was fine. "Just focus on finding a new job," he said. Then he started coming home later. I asked if he wanted to talk. He said he was just tired. After 3 weeks, his attitude changed. I'd ask him to look over a cover letter, and he'd glance at it like it annoyed him. If I told him about an interview I had coming up, he'd say, "Hope it works out," but his tone was flat, like he didn't really care. One afternoon, he got a call from his mom. I only heard his side. "Yeah, she's still looking?" "No, I don't think she's depressed." "No, she's not just sitting around." That night, he told me his mom invited us to dinner. "Everyone will be there," he said. When we showed up, I knew something was off right away. No food on the stove. Everyone, his mom, dad, brother, sister, aunt, was already sitting in the living room, waiting. Mike gave me a look. Not a nervous one. Just flat. Then he said, "Just listen, okay?" His mom started talking. She said I looked lost. That Mike was carrying everything now. She said they were worried he was going to burn out. Then she said the line I'll never forget. "You're draining him." His sister added, "You've always been a little too sensitive, and now it's showing." His brother, "Mike's too nice to say anything, but we see it." Then his mom again, like she'd been saving this one. "Maybe this is a sign you weren't meant for more." I looked at Mike. I waited for him to stop them. To say something, anything. He just said, "They're just trying to help. It's coming from a good place." I felt my face get hot. My hands were shaking. But I smiled. I nodded. I said, "Thanks for your concern." I even pretended to write some things down on my phone, like I was going to reflect on it later. But I wasn't taking notes for growth. I was taking notes for something else. That night, I started writing everything down. In a notebook I kept under the bed. Each time one of them said something hurtful, I'd write it down. When Mike would roll his eyes while I was job hunting, wrote it down. When he'd come home and sigh dramatically if I didn't have dinner ready, wrote it down. He started treating me like I was dead weight. One night I asked him, "Do you think I'm trying hard enough?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Maybe you could try harder." That was the night I decided I was leaving. I didn't know when. I didn't know how. But I knew I couldn't keep shrinking for people who didn't care if I disappeared. I applied to jobs out of state. I didn't tell anyone. I did interviews from the car, from the bathroom, from coffee shops. I worked on my resume while he watched TV. I researched moving costs while pretending to browse Facebook. And then I got the offer. A media startup in Denver. Project lead. Great pay. Full benefits. They even offered relocation support. When the email came in, I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I closed my laptop and made a plan. I said nothing to Mike. For 2 weeks, I kept the secret. I sold things online. I boxed up clothes and stored them in the trunk. I found an apartment in Denver, wired the deposit, and picked my flight. On my last morning there, I waited for him to leave for work. Then I packed the rest. I left behind the wedding album, the ring, the photos on the fridge. I printed out 2 plane tickets. One in my name, one in his. Taped them to the fridge next to a note that said, "You never spoke up for me. So, I found someone who will me." I left. That was 3 months ago. He never used the ticket. I thought when I left, there would be silence. And for a few days, there was the kind of peace I hadn't felt in months.
No passive-aggressive saís. No state interventions.
Just me, a new apartment with half-unpacked boxes, and snow falling outside my Denver window. Then the calls started. First from Mike. 1 missed call. Then 5. Then texts. "Where are you? Is this a joke? Are you seriously doing this?" I didn't respond. He sent a picture of the plane ticket I left him. Said, "You think this is fair?" I didn't answer. Then the tone shifted. "You humiliated me. My family is asking questions. My mom is in tears." That one made me laugh out loud. His mom was in tears? She had called me a drain less than 3 months ago. Said maybe I wasn't meant for more. Now I was gone, and suddenly she cared. A week later, he sent a voice memo. I didn't open it. Just saved it in a folder labeled "for court if needed." Then his sister texted me. "You left him over one rough patch. You're being dramatic. You could have at least said goodbye." I almost replied with one sentence. "You all said goodbye to me that night in your living room." But I didn't. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. Mike's job? The one he supposedly carried so gracefully while I was draining him? He got fired. Not laid off. Fired. Someone from my old company, someone who still followed me on LinkedIn, DM'd me. Said Mike had shown up drunk to a work event. Got into an argument with his boss. Apparently, things had been unraveling for a while. I guess it's easy to pretend you're the strong one when someone else is already falling apart. Now, with no job, no wife, and no one left to blame, Mike did what he always does. He played the victim. I started getting friend requests from random women, people I didn't know. One of them messaged me directly. "Hi, are you Mike's ex? He told me you abandoned him." I didn't reply. Just blocked her. A few days later, another one. "Mike said you had a mental breakdown. That you're not well." That one made my blood boil. Not because it was a lie, but because it was so typical. He couldn't just accept that I'd left. He had to rewrite the story. He made himself the hero. And me? The crazy one. The weak one. The unstable burden who couldn't handle life. I wanted to burn his whole little pity party to the ground. But I waited. Then something happened that shifted everything. I got an email from Mike's mom. The subject line just said, "Please read." Inside was a long, rambling message. She said she didn't know how bad things had gotten between me and Mike. That she was shocked by how he'd acted after I left. She said he'd been staying with her and that he was not the man she raised. She even apologized for that night in the living room. She said her words were harsh and not fair. I almost deleted it, but I didn't. Instead, I printed it out and taped it to the back of my closet. Because I knew I wasn't done yet. There were still things they didn't know. Like how Mike had used my savings account to pay off his credit card after I lost my job. Like how I found a receipt for a hotel room charged during the same week he said he was working late. Like how his family always treated me like a stranger, even after 3 years of marriage. They thought I left because I was fragile. They had no idea what I'd survived before I even met him. I didn't leave to run away. I left to rebuild, and I was just getting started. Denver gave me space.
Space to think, to feel,
to remember, and to start asking questions I should have asked a long time ago. One of the first things I did was pull my old credit reports. I'd never bothered much before. I trusted Mike. We split bills. We had a joint account for the mortgage and groceries. I had my own savings and he had his. That's how it was supposed to be. But the numbers didn't match. There were charges I didn't recognize. A cash advance on one of our shared cards, almost $4,000, taken out the same week I was laid off. The balance had been quietly paid off a month later. The money? Taken straight from my personal savings. It hadn't even occurred to me to check. I'd been too busy surviving. Now I realized he'd covered his mess with my lifeline. I called the bank, asked for account access logs and transaction history. The login? From our home IP address. The password reset? Done from his email. That was theft, plain and simple. And I wasn't done. Next, I went back through my old emails. I'd been so clouded at the time, I hadn't noticed the smaller stuff. Like how my resume had been edited in the cloud without my permission. Some job titles were swapped out, made to look weaker. One reference? Deleted. I had shared my resume with Mike once early on, when he said he'd clean it up. I thought he was helping. Now I wondered if he had sabotaged me. It didn't stop there. Remember the hotel receipt? That one nod at me. I didn't want to believe he'd cheated. For all his coldness, I thought maybe he was just emotionally absent. But then I remembered a name. Kelly. She was his coworker. I'd met her once. Tall, sharp laugh, too friendly. She complimented my earrings and called Mike, work husband, right in front of me. I dug through his old Instagram. Found her page. She'd gone private, but one of her old tagged photos was still public. It was dated 2 days after the hotel receipt. She was at a winery, with a man's arm around her. The sleeve? Same pattern as a flannel Mike owned. A flannel he told me he had accidentally left at work. My stomach turned. Not because I still loved him. I didn't. But because of the sheer stupidity of it all. He didn't just betray me. He made me doubt myself while he played house with someone else. And now, he was sulking in his mom's spare room, playing the wounded husband to anyone who'd listen. I kept gathering. Emails, texts, screenshots, bank statements. I made copies. Stored them on a password-protected drive. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it all yet, but I wanted it. Because if they ever tried to drag my name through the mud publicly or illegally, I'd bury them in receipts. Then one night, around 11 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. The message was short. You win. I hope you're happy. It was Mike. He sounded drunk. Defeated. Part of me felt a twinge of pity. But the rest of me felt nothing. Because here's the thing about people like him. They don't think you'll ever leave. They think they can chip away at you forever and you'll keep standing there, apologizing for bleeding. He thought he'd broken me. But he'd just made room for the sharpest part of me to grow back stronger. I didn't respond to his voicemail. I didn't need to. But I wasn't done. I knew what people like Mike and his family did when they lost control. They rewrote the story. Spread rumors. Twisted facts. And I wasn't about to let them smear me into some bitter cautionary tale. So, I wrote my own version first. I didn't go to war on Facebook. I didn't post rants. I wrote one clear, simple post. Professional tone. Shared on LinkedIn where I knew his coworkers are mutual friends and even some of his family would see it. 6 months ago, I lost my job and my husband's family staged an intervention. I was told I was a burden, that I had no value. So I started over. I found a new city, a better job, and a life that didn't require me to shrink to survive. To anyone who's been made to feel small while struggling, you're not weak. You're growing. I kept the receipts, and I kept my dignity. I didn't name names, but they knew. The fallout came fast. A former coworker of Mike's liked the post, then commented, "Proud of you." Another shared it. I knew his family saw it because 3 days later, I got an email from his aunt. She said it wasn't fair to air private matters online. I replied with one sentence, "You all made it public when you held that meeting in your living room." Then I blocked her. Mike, he finally sent me something real. A letter. Handwritten. It arrived at my Denver apartment in a plain white envelope. Inside were 4 pages of him trying to explain. Saying he was in a dark place. That he never meant to hurt me. That maybe I had changed too. He said something near the end that caught me. I don't know if I was trying to ruin you, but I didn't want to be the only one drowning. That line told me everything I needed to know. He hadn't been trying to help me. He just wanted someone to fall with him. I sat with that for a long time. I didn't hate him. I didn't want revenge anymore. But I wasn't done speaking. So I sent him a letter back.
Short.
5 lines. You didn't drown because of me. You sank because you were already hollow. I tried to keep us both afloat. You let go first. Now I swim alone and I'm not looking back. Then I mailed copies of all the financial records, his credit theft, the resume sabotage, everything, to my lawyer. Not for divorce, but to protect myself. Just in case. He never responded again. Last I heard, he moved in with his dad.
Couldn't hold a job.
Kelly dumped him. His mom doesn't talk about me anymore. I guess that's her version of guilt. And me? I've been promoted. I have real friends now. I sleep well. I don't flinch at shadows. But I still keep the notebook. Not out of spite. Out of memory. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge isn't burning it all down. It's building something better and letting them watch from the ashes.